I'm going to get us live on Facebook as people trickle in here. Let's take a couple minutes. Okay. Okay, I already see some familiar names in our audience. There's David Andrews, Jay Howe, Kay, Mary Ellen Miller. I'm always sad we can't see your faces, but we can see your names. So that's a comfort. Aaron, I think people will kind of trickle in, but we can just kind of slowly get things started because I know we have a lot of good announcements for folks today.
Well, excellent. We'll do that. Welcome, everyone. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series, and we have today our farmer spotlight with McKinley Lain. McKinley is a farmer from Centerville, Iowa, and we're going to talk about Cooper Fields and all the things going on there. So we are so glad you are able to join us, McKinley. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
We're going to get started with a couple of Farmers Union announcements, but as we do that, we're going to start with the trivia question today. The trivia question is a fun one. It's in honor of our upcoming Iowa State Fair activities. The Iowa Farmers Union booth is just down the hall from the Butter Cow. Today's trivia question asks, at last year's Iowa State Fair, what Iowa sports stars were carved in butter along with the Butter Cow? So the 2023 Iowa State Fair, what Iowa sports stars were carved in butter along with the Butter Cow? We'll give our answer in just a little bit. So but we are very grateful to that you're here today. And well, let's start with a couple of Farmers Union announcements before we start our conversation with McKinley. Christina, can you start us off?
Yes. So, Aaron, I think I'm going to ask you to go off screen, even though we want to see your smiling face so much. It is a little choppy. Okay, so consider this your official invitation Monday. What is that, June 17th at 10:30 a.m. to join us for another session of the Story Writers Co-op hosted by IFU. We've done this a few times now. If you've joined us, great. If you haven't, it doesn't matter. You can still join us on Monday. And we are going to get together and we are going to practice capturing our stories, figuring out where the power is in all of our individual stories. So come join us. I will put the link to register in the chat. Aaron, do you want to touch on a couple of the other things?
Yes, a couple other announcements, folks. Iowa Farmers Union Day at the Iowa Cubs game is coming up on June 29th on Saturday night. We are so excited. We'll get to gather with Farmers Union members and enjoy a game at the Iowa Cubs. You'll get a t-shirt along with a ticket for the $25. So join us for the Farmers Union Day at the Iowa Cubs game, 5:30 on June 29th at Principal Park in Des Moines. The link to sign up is in the chat. We are also looking forward to opportunity for Farmers Union members. The Beginning Farmer Institute is something that is an excellent opportunity for Iowa Farmers Union members to learn about agriculture and about skills needed for your farm, along with farmers around the country. The Beginning Farmer Institute will be a series of online functions with a great opportunity for a final event where all the participants from around the country will gather and they'll do farm tours and other activities together as well. So the Beginning Farmer Institute is an excellent 10-week free online course. It will help with your farm and ranch business, and it covers accounting, taxation, succession planning, and all sorts of activities. Sign up by July 1st. It's been an excellent opportunity for a number of Iowa Farmers Union members in the past, And we'll look forward to having Iowa Farmers Union members take advantage of this opportunity. It is a selection process. You do need to apply. The application is available in the chat through the link. And finally, we wanted to remind people about a great opportunity in addition to our booth at the Iowa State Fair during the entire 11-day Iowa State Fair. On August 11th, the Iowa Farmers Union is sponsoring a day at the Iowa State Fair. We are the lead sponsor on Sunday, August 11th, and it's a great opportunity. We'll have a huge presence at the fair right along the main concourse, and it's a big investment for us. If you're able to help us with our Fund It Forward fundraiser, check out the donation link in the chat. It is going to be an exciting day for us to spread the Farmers Union message. So we are very, very happy for that. Lastly, our trivia question answer also dealt with the Iowa State Fair. In 2023, there not only was the butter cow just down the hall from us at our booth in the agriculture building, all 11 days of the fair, there were also 2 Iowa sports stars featured. And who were those sports stars who were carved in butter at the Iowa State Fair? And the answers were Caitlin Clark and, of course, Kurt Warner, 2 wonderful Iowa sports stars. And we haven't heard yet who's going to be carved in the 2024 display along with the butter cow. So, of course, a long time Farmers Union members were involved in carving the butter cow over the years. So we have a soft spot in our heart for the butter cow display. But before we go any further, we should get to our conversation for today. And we are very grateful to be joined by McKinley Lain. McKinley is a farmer from Centerville, Iowa, and he's here to talk us about Cooper Fields. It's a small agroecological farm offering produce and educational opportunities. And we'll learn the latest about this growing season and how the farm operates and what makes Cooper Fields unique, and how it leads to Iowa's well-being as far as a diverse agricultural state. In addition, McKinley was joined Farmers Union advocacy training workshops in Washington, D.C. with other family farm members from around the country, and we'll learn a little bit about that as well. We are so grateful that Cooper is joining us today. Thank you. I'm sorry that McKinley's joining us today to talk about Cooper Field. So thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, a lot of people get stuck on Cooper being my last name or first name, but it's actually based on the creek that's on our property. The relationship being our waterway is the closest way that we can connect to the rest of the earth. And so knowing that the impact we have on the land is seen through Cooper Creek, and that's why we call it Cooper Field. So that's sometimes a nice connection. I'm going to go ahead and share a couple pictures just to kind of have a little bit of a conversation and hopefully spur some questions. Let me get it so I can present this quick. And really open to any questions as we kind of go through once we get to ask some questions afterwards. But here are just some pictures for me to point out as to what our farm kind of looks like, give you a picture into our world. We have cattle, we also have sheep and goats as well. And we start a lot of things inside in the greenhouse. This year we started February 1st. And our greenhouse is a small 10 by 12 heated, 3-sided insulated greenhouse with polycarbonate plastic on the front. And so it's a really simple, space efficient way to get things started. And then stuff goes in the ground starting in April or so. In terms of practices and things that we do, compost, this picture down here on the bottom is our first transition to an aerated compost system. Rather than turning it, we use a forced air system. I do some turning as well in other piles, but compost is our one kind of main amendment that we use for our fertilization, our fertility program. So I do everything based in with microscopes. So I'll test what the compost looks like if I'm heavy in certain things and what I need to do to change that up. as the farm looks, we got a lot of different styles. This here picture on the bottom is just showing us, this is a couple of our beds are landscape fabrics to help our lettuces be a little cleaner and a little more densely planted. The majority of our beds are actually a deep mulch method, mostly with hay that we cut on the farm. And so for some of you, you may recognize that as Ruth Stout method. It mainly helps avoid weeds. It helps us spin out the water, but it also is our fertility program. As that grass and hay ends up decomposing, that becomes our next year's fertility. So that's another version of bed that we have that's not pictured here. A couple other pictures to share some other things. This is our breeder bull calf, which I was really proud of because I was a little nervous about crossing the cross I did with a White Park and a Dexter. Our Dexter cows are the main breed for us. Up on the top left, just a quick picture of a nematode. This is I believe a bacterial feeder. I'm not a perfect at identifying, but the way we test our soil and the way we test our compost is with the microscope. And we identify, do we have enough nematodes? Do we have enough fungi? Are they fungi that we have beneficial? Are they harmful? A lot of that work coming from Elaine Ingham and the Soil Food Web Network allows us to do on-farm kind of closed loop, closed circle nutrient management plans. And down on the bottom left is one of our educational opportunities. These are some students of mine that I got convinced to come to community garden at the city park in Centerville. The city was gracious enough to let me take probably 1,000 square foot area and go ahead and make it into a garden, and we grow anything that is easy to harvest so people can walk by and take whatever they'd like whenever it's ready to harvest. So that's one of a cool opportunity that we have the chance to be involved in. And on the bottom right, you're going to see those two other types of beds. That's a little bit blurry, but we have wood chip beds. Anytime we do germination of something like carrots or radishes, we'll put boards over them until they germinate, stay moist. And then the hay bed is over here as well on the right. Big picture wise, we're in a small community. We got 5,000 people in the city, 12,000 in the county. And food access to healthy food can be challenging. So consistently, one of the biggest challenges for us and kind of things that we want to be thinking about is, although we need to make our business work, healthy food to me is a right, not a privilege. And we got to find a way to be able to get the food to people that need it, while also making the money that will allow us to be successful. I am lucky enough to be on my grandparents' land, which right now for small farms, without a connection to land is very challenging to come by. And so we're grateful for that, and it really does make a big impact in terms of our ability to reach the people that we want to feed. And so we grow a diversity of produce. This year we have a small 14-member CSA, or a weekly box of vegetables for 10 weeks. And we also sell at the farmers market. And we also sell on farm. At one point, we wanted a big farm stand and people could come and take whatever they wanted. With the help of PFI, Practical Farmers of Iowa, we actually ended up building a walk-in cooler. And that walk-in cooler helps keep our produce fresh. And so we wanted to not pull that produce into the farm stand. So what we're doing now is for people that we know, we just introduce them to the cooler, and we have a rack that is available for them to purchase from. And they can just put the cash there in the cooler as well. So it gives an opportunity, more opportunities for connection, for them to come out to the farm, but also if we're not here, for them to be able to do that as well. So that's kind of the big picture on the farm, and as questions come out, you can ask about any of those components. Really quick, I'll touch on the Farmers Union training, the advocacy training in DC. The words on the right come from a lesson I did in class. I'm also a math teacher and I teach Spanish at the high school. And so that's not really related, but the Farmers Union was a really cool opportunity to go to this advocacy training. We went to DC. In this picture on the right, you'll see me and Daquan Campbell from Northern Iowa. So we're the two Iowa delegates and we're in front of the Capitol there. This opportunity was amazing. It was an opportunity to see where do we as individual farmers, as individual consumers, play in the role of legislation. And really, what stood out to me the most is that while I went to DC and we talked about legislation and what have you, my role, although it could be that, doesn't have to be that. More than anything, we as people here in Iowa, we need to make sure that we have the thing that we're working towards. And a lot of times there's programs that will help us work towards those things, but there's a pretty high frequency of programs not being fully used to be supporting local farms. And so really what I realized is to be an advocate in DC while in Iowa is to be the strongest and best Iowan that each of us can be. Find the things that make us passionate, find the things that make us excited. Um, and so the biggest thing about DC that came for me was that one, Farmers Union has our back. In DC, they have people on the ground regularly that we can reach if we need to. And that our biggest job is to be here and to do the best we can do here in the ways that we see fit. Because DC isn't going to be able to understand all the intricacies of our communities. And so this is the opportunity we have every day to better understand our communities and the challenges within them and the opportunities that we can have as well. So I'll give that's a big overview. I'll give enough time here for a couple questions as well. I see in the chat, Mary's looking for contact info. Facebook is a great place to contact me, and Christina will also share my email as well. So happy to reach out, and in any way you come visit as well. We'd be glad to support that.
Well, that's great. And we do have a few questions coming in and a few others that people have already wanted me to ask. But let's start with your role as an educator. How did you feel that your role as an educator fits with your farm and your mission for your farm?
It's huge. So I'm passionate about teaching Spanish. Lately, I've only been able to teach math because of the available positions in Centerville. And people keep saying, hey, you could go to another community and teach Spanish. And my response is, there's no reason for me to teach outside of the community that I'm feeding. And the point being is that the schools are now one of the main places, and have always been a main place where nearly every family in the community is connected. Whether they're alumni, they have kids coming up in the school system, whatever it is. And so I have found that to be the single most available hub for me to ultimately better understand the community, but also better reach the community. I have 2 students that are coming out a couple times a week to come help on the farm. They don't make a whole lot of money because it's not super lucrative yet, but at least get to pay them a little bit. And more than anything, they get the opportunity to be at the farmers markets. They're interacting with people. They're seeing how we grow food. And those types of connections that I can't even quantify are immeasurable on that front.
Well, that's great to hear. That it really seems to ground your work so well, McKinley. That's really inspiring for our folks. How did you learn about Farmers Union? How did you become a member?
To be completely honest, Tommy Hexter. He was my way in. We connected at a PFI, a Practical Farmers of Iowa conference back in 2020, I think. And we connected real quick, and then he got into Farmers Union, and I've really enjoyed having that opportunity, having the connection as well, especially now wanting to be more a part of a bigger picture and a bigger hope as to what we can do together.
Sure. And what do you feel Farmers Union role is into raising up the statewide presence of locally based diversified model for Iowa production of good, healthy local food?
Yeah, I think a key component is to see that like down here in Centerville, it feels kind of lonely sometimes. It can feel isolating as a grower, especially a grower with a very specific kind of standard and expectations of how do we use the land, what is the land for, what ways can we diversify while also minimizing our impact. And I think the Farmers Union provides an opportunity for a lot of learning for growers, but also a lot of learning for consumers. And I think
Yeah.
those two things in and of themselves are huge.
Yeah. You mentioned that land access is such an important issue with our young and beginning farmers, and with our efforts to diversify agriculture, to create a more just food system. Uh, I'm guessing that you were able to share stories about that with your colleagues from around the country while you were at advocacy training. It's a subject that comes up a lot.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to have access to my grandparents' land. We have 200 acres here, and there are a lot of people that have that type of access. There's a lot of people that don't, and a lot of times those fall on specific boundaries that have been historically created. But one of the things that I'd like to continually push is that a produce farm can be profitable at an acre or 2 acres. And there's a lot of people right now that have corners in their lots, or that back 40 that they can't get to because they use a 60-foot planter now and they don't use it, or whatever it is, that there is always opportunity. When someone comes to me and says, hey, I might want to farm, I'll say land is a challenge, but it's not insurmountable. Every county has niblets of land that any given produce grower could have access to. You don't need 200 acres. And honestly, our 200 acres is almost a debt or a burden, because we need to make money on all of it, not just the garden, even though the garden is one of our main focuses. So I've had to pull out into animal agriculture as a means to pay for that property, or to help pay for that property. So that access is hard, not impossible, would be the message that I really want to support people with, because that's where these connecting bodies are important. It does feel impossible if we aren't connected.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great message for us. So, McKinley, we've had a challenging spring.
Mary mentioned silt.
Oh,
silt has a lot of opportunities. A little bit more bigger picture, you kind of got to know where you're headed, and you have a practice in mind and maybe some background, but also a great opportunity. Yeah.
oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, McKinley. What a great partner Silt is in these efforts. So take us to the farm this spring. It's been a challenging spring. How are things looking?
Honestly, pretty good. We have our bouts with different bugs every year. Cucumber beetle has been our menace this year. But you know, I think things are coming together. About 3 weeks ago, I was kind of dim. I was really fingers crossed that plants do what they do, and every time that I fingers crossed and have plants ask for them to do what they do, they tend to grow. So they have been growing. I've spent a lot of more time this spring watching. I'll just lay down by a zucchini plant and I'll watch it for 15 minutes, and understanding a little bit more in a qualitative sense, how are these bugs interacting with the plant, what's happening in that way, has been kind of a key point to the spring. But no, I would say market is energized as Centerville has been since I moved here in 5 years. And for our first CSA, second CSA, really technically, got started well, and people are enjoying it. So I'm grateful to be at that point of, we're still planting a lot, but we're starting to harvest. My partner always says the only reason she farms is to harvest. And that's where you start to see some great opportunities and some great connections built.
Well, that's great. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, and we love to have your contact information for people who want to learn more and take part. But before we go, I want to ask you, what's making you most optimistic on the farm, and what makes you most optimistic about Iowa agriculture moving ahead?
That's a great question. On-farm optimism, I go back to the fact that the plants do their thing. You cut them, they grow back. They struggle, just like we do sometimes, but they grow back as long as they have the support they need. I'm optimistic that we're building a long-term soil ecosystem that will allow for resilient plants. It may not be a tomorrow solution, but I hope to be here for the next 60 years. And if that's the case, then I hope that the soil every single year is becoming more abundant in the microorganisms it needs to survive. That's what I'm optimistic about. As for Iowa as a whole, Iowa, the small farm world, the family farm world, the healthy food kind of environment of Iowa is growing, and a lot of us see that. I'm optimistic for the opportunities that I think are available and are going to continue to become more available for farmers who are getting started. I want to make sure that one of those being me, right? Every farmer that comes on becomes an opportunity for an experience for a farmer who wants to start. So I'm optimistic about where we're headed as a community-based kind of farming model, and how Iowa as a community in and of itself is enlivening that.
Well, that's a great message for us to leave with, McKinley. This has been such an honor to get to know your farm a little bit and about your vision for the farm in your community. So thank you for being with us.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron, so much. Yeah, and contact cooperfieldsllc@gmail.com is in the chat. That's a great way to start. Facebook Messenger is probably the fastest, but we'll definitely get back to an email as well.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you, McKinley. It's great to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Everyone, this has been the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. It's our effort to provide outreach to our members and to the general public about important issues to family farmers, to sustainable agriculture, and to thriving rural communities. So if you haven't had a chance to join the Farmers Union yet, please do so. The Farmers Union works because we all work together, and bringing those voices, those stories together to make a real difference as we educate people, as we encourage people to cooperate, and as we push for policies that are important to family farming. All those things happen when we work together. So please consider joining the Farmers Union today if you haven't had a chance to. So we're looking forward very much to seeing people at the Iowa Farmers Union Day at the Iowa Cubs. And please check out opportunities with beginning farmers of Iowa. I'm sorry, with our Beginning Farmer Institute. That information is also in the chat. And of course, don't forget our Story Writers Co-op that is going to be meeting again on Monday. So we've got lots of exciting things going on in the Farmers Union. Thanks again, McKinley. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Have a good day.
Bye.